Greetings. Today's topic is 5 things that immigrants need to do right now. The immigrants I'm talking about are the immigrants who are here, or they're undocumented, maybe they're residents, but they're not citizens, and uh, and they want to have a possibility in the future of becoming a resident or becoming a citizen or being here that they don't get deported. So these are 5 things that they need to do to protect themselves and be able to have a future where they can find a way to legalize their status here in the United States or get to the next level. All right, the first thing that they need to do is get a passport. Now, many immigrants, when they enter the United States, lose their passport or they get stopped by immigration and their passport is taken away. So they need to really make an effort to get a passport as soon as possible, especially because the consulates have been closed for 2 years. Many of them are, it's hard to get an appointment. They're not open fully. So it's better to work on that as soon as possible to get a passport. And you have to make an appointment. Sometimes it's hard to communicate with the different locations. I know here in New York, it's hard for countries to get an appointment for countries like El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico at times. So it's better to work on this as soon as possible. Now, the other benefit of having a passport is a lot of times you need to get fingerprints done for a benefit from immigration or for other reasons. Let's say in family court, a lot of people who want to be guardians or who live in a house where somebody needs a guardian to petition them, and that petition helps them to get residency. They need to be fingerprinted, and in order to be fingerprinted, you need some sort of ID. And usually, the most common ID for someone who is not born here in the United States would be a passport. So it's important to get the passport. Also, if they want to get employment authorization, now the employment authorization is requiring them to send, even to renew, even if you already have an employment authorization, you're trying to renew it, they're making you get fingerprint to send a copy of your passport. And later on, when you get your fingerprint, they want to make sure it's the same person, so they see a copy of your passport. So there are many reasons that a passport can be useful. And then the next thing too is in order to get a driver's license. Now, in driver's license is another document that another thing that immigrants should work on getting, especially if you're in a state like New York, where your legal status doesn't affect your ability to get a driver's license. Driver's license is important. It's a form of identification. It's also useful when you're getting credit, things like that. It's a way to prove you're present in the United States too. If later on you need to prove presence, you have to have insurance. And in a lot of immigrants, a lot of times you see this, that somebody else owns their car and it's under somebody else's name, that the other person, the insurance is under the other person's name. It's a hassle. A lot of times if people charge them to help them out. So if you're in a state like New York where you can have a driver's license, no matter what your status, you should get a driver's license. The other fact too is that when you get stopped by the police and let's say you're speeding or something of that nature, or you made the turn, the incorrect turn, it's a lot better for you if you have a driver's license. Then the only charge that you're going to have is the charge for the problem that you created. And also, if you have an unlicensed driver, which is a violation, or you don't take care of it, you don't pay for it, you don't pay for the fine that you have to pay, you forget to even follow up with that ticket, then you could end up with an aggravated unlicensed driver, which is a misdemeanor. And that could affect your getting residency in the future. I've had cases where they say that person, because they didn't really care about taking care of paying the fine, that they were intentionally disobeying the law, and that makes them a person of bad moral character. So then you have to explain that that's not really the case. They didn't get the bill, and it becomes more difficult. If they get a DWI, then that's another charge, and it automatically becomes something that could be aggravated. So the best thing is to have a driver's license. Makes life easier for you. It's a good form of identification, and it helps you to give you a better chance of getting your permanent residence in the future. Or if you're resident ready, it might affect your citizenship depending on what you're charged. And sometimes these charges, even though they start off small as traffic charges, they could become bigger. So that's the second thing you should do. The other thing you should do, and I've been telling immigrants for years, is to pay their taxes and to pay their back taxes. Recently and many times in the past, I've had people who are proving that they've been here for 10 years. One, it shows good proof that you've already been present, but also if you take care of any back taxes, it shows you're a person of good moral character. And in removal proceedings, a lot of times the judges consider your non-payment of taxes to mean that you're a person who doesn't want to obey the law, even though you're here undocumented. You should pay the taxes as part of the law. If you work, make money, you should pay taxes. So it's very important to not only pay the taxes you have now, but at least begin to start paying back taxes that you owe. And remember, the longer you wait, the more interest and penalties are. So it's good to pay your back taxes. The other thing too is I think most immigrants have to learn to stop drinking and driving. Number one, a lot of them don't have a license and they're driving, and it makes it worse. Both things are worse. Driving without while you're intoxicated, and driving and being intoxicated without a license, both affect the defense of your case. But I think, and I have a lot of these cases, and so it would make it harder for me to represent somebody, but better for them if they don't drink and drive, especially now during the holiday seasons. It's tough. A lot of people don't realize that it could affect them. It could get them deported. In fact, nowadays, if you have two driving while intoxicated charges or convictions, you could not be able to argue for the relief. Let's say if it's cancellation that you're here more than 10 years and your family will suffer, they're not letting you argue because they're saying you're a person of bad moral character. And there's case law concerning that. And it kind of makes sense because if you're driving while intoxicated, you could injure somebody, kill a family member of somebody, a father, a mother, a child of and a lot of times the DWIs that people get, they have the kids in the car, which is even makes it worse. It makes it a felony. So the best thing is to not, the best thing to do is not drink and drive. If you're gonna drink, get a cab, call an Uber, call a friend. If you're gonna drive, don't drink. If you need to drive, you have to be somewhere, and be careful during the holiday season because that people, it's their chances of being stopped are heightened, and it's more dangerous for you to have problems. Okay, so don't drink and drive. Now, the other thing too is that the last thing is that if you have an old conviction and there's a way you can try to get it vacated or reduced or change the charges, and that's possible ahead of time. A lot of times people already get to deportation and they have to rush to vacate an old charge. It's better not to have to do that. If is any way you can change a previous conviction, you should do so now. Especially a couple of years ago, the law changed in New York that a lot of things that were misdemeanors can be, or were felonies, can be reduced. Because a lot of things in the law for immigration, if you have a conviction that's a year or more, it could affect you. So you want to make it that the penalty going to jail is a year or more, it can affect you. So you want to see if there's any chance, go to speak to an attorney. I do those cases all the time, getting charges vacated and reduced, or vacated altogether. And so that'll help you in the future, especially charges that are things of moral character. So if you somehow you can get it vacated and you can demonstrate that it's based on changes in the law, not just because you need it for immigration, but in the interest of justice, especially if you have family here and you're trying to do the right thing and it was maybe the only time you were arrested and convicted, then that's something you should really look into. Well, I hope these have been helpful for you. I know they help. This type of advice has helped clients of mine in the past who've listened to me. And a lot of times, unfortunately, they don't listen to me, and I have to figure out a solution for the problems that they have. which are something they can easily take care of. So have a wonderful month, and hope to speak to you soon.